shining sea. And you and me are free to be you and me.
My little niece Dion was around 4 years old at the time, my sister's daughter, and she was the first grandchild. So the stories that I was reading to her, I was disappointed that it was the same old stuff that my sister and I had read about, with the same old prince, the same old happy ending, and the same old. And I wanted something more for her. I wanted to have stories for her that would encourage her to be more than what I was encouraged to be through the stories I read when I was a girl. I decided that I would just do this myself, and my original idea was quite small. I would record this little album, for my niece.
Let's hear about some of the late night sessions, because you brought some people together in your living room, am I right?
Yes, in the beginning.
And was Carol involved yet?
Yeah, Carol was involved then. No, not this Carol.
Not Carol Hall. Carol Hart. There's two Carols.
But we were lucky when Carol Hall did get involved. But Carol Hart and her husband Bruce Hart, who wrote the title song with Stephen Lawrence, and Herb Gardner, who was my beau at the time, and Patty Chayefsky was there for a few things. And anyway, we would sit around and just talk about what we wished we'd had when we were kids. And Herbie talked a lot about the fact that he was called a sissy when he showed his feelings. And of course, Carol wrote that wonderful song, It's All Right to Cry, which I think is really the classic of the album, a real classic. And
without that, we wouldn't have John Boehner.
That's right.
And so we decided that we were going to go out and create a lot of original material because it just didn't exist in place. And then, so that started everything going.
I wanted to write Parents Are People. I was struck by certain funny things in my family. I have a cousin who's a rancher. She is the sole child of her father, and she's got an enormous responsibility. And she used to say, before Free to Be, as brief discussions between us having to do with politics sort of landed on and quickly left, she would, feed pigs, milk the cow, go out and round up a few cattle, bring them into the corral, come in, bring the milk that she got from the cow, make a cake, and then say to me, I don't know why you're all excited about feminism.
And it turned out that though I knew her as that girl, and I knew her as, a movie star, she wanted to talk about books, children's books. It was completely unexpected. We had a talk that established that we were on the same page in terms of recognizing that it had to begin in childhood. If we were going to change anything, we had to start with the pinks and the blues, and the girls can't and the boys mustn't and all of that. And we started talking about it, and I became what I think of as the kind of Jiminy Cricket on Marlowe's shoulder. I had a role simply as an editorial consultant, but it allowed me to be at all the meetings and to bring in some opinions of librarians and psychologists and to have the opportunity to bring stuff home to you guys.
With the Equal Rights Amendment. And it just seemed like such a sensible thing, and it seemed absurd to me that it would even be a problem getting it ratified by all the states, and a lot of states had already ratified it, but then it hit a wall. That's pretty much what I did if I wasn't on camera or writing. I would be out in Oklahoma making speeches with Ellie Smeal, who was the head of NOW then, and or I'd be getting up in the State House in Illinois, where they nearly lynched me. They were so mad that I mentioned the Equal Rights Amendment. I was just supposed to take a bow, and they said, "Don't say anything." So I started talking.
And so there was a big conversation, and then they said, well, they didn't like Parents Are People, which Carol had. That's right. Well, it wasn't they didn't like the song. They didn't like the fact that Harry Belafonte and I were wheeling baby buggies down Fifth Avenue. I had my baby buggy, he had his baby buggy, and we were singing, parents are people, daddies are this, and mommies are this. And it said it looked like we were married and it would never play in the South. So I said, well, first of all, it doesn't look like we're married. We each have our own buggy. And second of all, who cares? We're leaving it in. I'm not taking that out. So it was a lot of stress about William wants a doll, it's all right to cry, black and white husband and wife. I mean, I was very discouraged by the lack of forward thinking, for the lack of a better way of saying it.
You
I
were
was really
discouraged by lack of forward thinking in television.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Right. It's very touching to know that somebody, that this something you did actually affected somebody's life. One of the great stories of this, again, is Mel Brooks. Mel and Annie were on an airplane, his wife, Anne Bancroft, and a woman came over to him and said, "Oh, thank you, thank you. I love your album. I just love it so much. It's always meant so much to me." And he said, "Well, thank you." And he turned to Anne and said, "Isn't that great? They love the 2,000-year-old man." And she said, "That's Marlowe's album, you idiot."
To the green country, in our land, to a shining